What if I told you that nearly half of everything you do each day isn't a conscious choice, that hundreds of your daily actions, from how you wake up, to what you eat, to how you unwind, are run by an invisible script? Welcome to WellthSync. Today, we're diving deep into that script, the powerful science of our habits.
That is a fascinating way to frame it. The human brain processes approximately 11 million bits of information every second, but your conscious mind can only handle about 40. Habits are your brain's evolutionary survival mechanism to automate behavior and conserve that precious conscious energy. They are, quite literally, your brain's autopilot system.
And that autopilot system is constantly being shaped. For decades, it was thought our brains were mostly fixed after childhood, but we now know they are constantly rewiring based on our habits. That's the core of neuroplasticity, right?
Correct. Every time you repeat an action, you strengthen the neural circuits associated with it. This process begins in a region of the brain called the basal ganglia. When you first learn a new skill, your prefrontal cortex, your brain's CEO, is working overtime, which is why new things feel so mentally exhausting.
And this is where dopamine comes in, which people often call the pleasure chemical.
That is a common misconception. Dopamine is more accurately the anticipation chemical. It's not about the reward itself, but about creating the craving for that reward. This craving is what drives the habit loop, the four-step operating system for all our automatic behaviors.
Okay, so this is the plan for our deep dive today. First, we're going to break down that four-part habit loop. Then we will explore the 4 laws of behavior change, a powerful framework for building good habits and breaking bad ones, providing actionable tools you can use immediately. This is the roadmap to understanding and rewriting your own internal script. So let's start with the first component of the habit loop, the cue.
The cue is the trigger that tells your brain which habit to use. It can be a time of day, a location, or an emotional state. For example, the cue for a meditation habit might be seeing your meditation cushion on the floor first thing in the morning. For a bad habit, the cue might be a feeling of boredom, which triggers you to open a social media app.
After the cue comes the craving. This isn't about the action itself, but the change in state we desire, correct?
Precisely. The craving is the desire for the outcome. You don't crave meditation. You crave the mental clarity it brings. You don't crave scrolling. You crave the entertainment or distraction it provides. This craving is what motivates the third step, the response.
The response is the actual habit we perform, like sitting down to meditate or opening the app. And finally, the reward.
The reward is the satisfying outcome that completes the loop. It could be the sense of calm after meditating or the dopamine hit from new content on social media. The reward teaches your brain that this entire loop is worth remembering and repeating for the future.
So if we want to change our behavior, we have to work with this loop. That leads us perfectly into the 4 laws of behavior change. Let's start with the first law.
The first law is make it obvious. This law is all about engineering your cues. Your environment is one of the most powerful drivers of your behavior. To build a good habit, you must make the cues for it visible and obvious.
Like leaving your running shoes by the door if you want to start jogging in the morning.
Exactly. Conversely, to break a bad habit, you must make the cue invisible. If you want to stop mindless snacking, hide the junk food in a place that's hard to see and access. You are removing the environmental trigger.
That makes perfect sense. What's the second law?
The second law is make it attractive. This targets the craving. We are more likely to perform a habit if we find it appealing. A powerful strategy here is temptation bundling, where you pair an action you need to do with an action you want to do.
So something like, I'll only listen to my favorite podcast while I'm exercising.
That is a perfect example. You are linking the immediate reward of something you enjoy with a habit you are trying to build. Another way to make habits attractive is to join a culture where your desired behavior is the normal behavior. Our brains are wired to want to fit in with the tribe.
Hey everyone, just pausing for a second. If you're having any aha moments while learning how your brain builds habits, I would be so grateful if you could support the channel in 2 specific ways. First, every like, comment, and share on this video tells the YouTube algorithm that this is valuable content, helping it reach more people who might need these tools. And second, If you want to continue these deep dives with us and build your own toolkit for a better life, please hit that subscribe button. It's the best way to join our community and support what we're building here at WellthSync. Thank you so much for being here. It truly means the world. Okay, let's get back to the 4 laws of behavior change. Welcome back. We've covered making habits obvious and attractive. Now let's move on to the 3rd law of behavior change, which feels like a big one for people who struggle to get started.
The 3rd law is make it easy. Human behavior follows the law of least effort. To build a good habit, you must reduce the friction associated with it. This is where the 2-minute rule is incredibly effective.
The idea that any new habit should take less than 2 minutes to do.
Correct. Read before bed becomes read 1 page. Do 30 minutes of yoga becomes take out my yoga mat. The goal is to master the art of showing up. Once the initial habit of starting is established, you can improve upon it over time.
And to break a bad habit, you do the opposite. You increase the friction.
Precisely. If you want to watch less TV, unplug it after each use and put the remote in another room. That small bit of friction gives your prefrontal cortex a moment to override the impulsive desire.
Okay, so we've made the habit obvious, attractive, and easy. What's the final law that ties it all together?
The 4th law is make it satisfying. This targets the reward. For a habit to stick, we must feel successful immediately. The problem with most good habits is that their reward is delayed.
Right, you don't get fit after one workout. So how do we create an immediate reward?
You can create immediate reinforcement. For example, after completing a good habit, you could put a check mark on a calendar or move a paperclip from one jar to another. This small act of victory provides a satisfying dopamine hit that reinforces the behavior. Habit tracking itself is a very powerful tool.
That makes so much sense, but what about when we inevitably fail or miss a day? That's where a lot of people give up.
This is where one of the most practical rules comes in: never miss twice. Missing 1 day is an accident. It happens to everyone. But missing 2 days is the beginning of a new, undesirable habit. The key isn't to be perfect, but to get back on track as quickly as possible.
And there's a deeper level to this, isn't there? It's not just about the actions, but about who we become.
Exactly. True behavior change is identity change. Every time you perform a habit, you are casting a vote for the type of person you want to be.
So it's less about, I need to run to lose weight, and more about, I am a runner.
Precisely. And here is a mind-blowing statistic to illustrate the power of consistency. If you can get just 1% better each day, that small improvement compounds to being nearly 38 times better over the course of a year. It is like compound interest for personal development.
That really puts into perspective how small, consistent changes add up over time.
That is the key takeaway. Sustainable change isn't about dramatic transformations. It is about understanding how your brain works and making tiny 1% improvements consistently. Remember, every habit you build is a vote for your future self.
So the final question isn't just what do you want to achieve, but who do you want to become? Thank you, AI. This has been an incredibly insightful deep dive, and thank you all for listening to WellthSync. Until next time, build wisely.